have them go through Ben directly in a private chat.
Again, apologies for the interruption.
That's okay. So you know, we've been dealing with this for 2 years. We're learning things. We're moving forward in the best way that we can. And we've learned from our success thus far. You know, we have been very lucky to have very low transmission or very low rates of COVID. And knock on wood, you know, no known transmission on campus. We have engaged in sort of the multi-layer sets of precautions, and that has been it's allowed us to be open as to the best of our ability. So we're in a bit of a different situation now. I think we're all having to recognize that we're going to be living with this for a long time, and that with this Omicron variant, that there are going to be cases of COVID going forward, but we continue to be really committed to providing our JD students with an online or in-person, learning and teaching experiences that are really satisfying. And we're doing that by layering our levels of protection. And each layer of protection is one more way that we're able to bring, you know, 800 people back into the building. So, you know, starting with vaccines and boosters, I've gotten a lot of questions about boosters and some skepticism about the requirement. It is every health expert that we have talked to, all the government officials are telling us that we need them. The boosters, you know, having a vaccinated population, it decreases the incidence of COVID. Many people who are boosted won't get COVID. And I'll tell you a personal experience that I had someone in my household over Christmas that I was very close with, in close contact. And I didn't get COVID, but the booster worked for me, and it worked for other people in the household who also were exposed. Now, the person who was sick with COVID had a booster, so that person had a breakthrough, and that's going to happen. But people who are vaccinated and boosted carry a lower viral load, so you have protection on both sides. Some people are protected from the booster, from infection in the first place, but it also decreases the amount of virus so that when people do have breakthrough infections, they've been exposed to less virus. And people who are vaccinated and boosted are 17 times safer than people who are unvaccinated when they do get an infection. So if we do have a case that happens to want a community member, being a vaccinated and boosted campus allows us to have fewer cases. It allows us to have less contagion and far less worry that someone is going to end up on a ventilator or die. And so that is a really important layer of protection, and we need everyone to upload their booster information as soon as possible. You have it, most of you have done it already. Just upload it and get that information out there. Of course, we continue to use masks, and again, that is a key layer of protection. And we are strongly recommending that everyone upgrade your mask. Put your cute Albany Law mask aside for the time being, and use a medical grade N95 or KN95 or a better mask, at least for now, while the Omicron variant is so prevalent. We have ordered some people aren't able to access them. We're gonna figure out a way to distribute them to people who need them, so be on the lookout for that. We've also increased the ventilation in the law school. We've increased the amount of fresh air. We have better, higher grade filters, so that's another layer of protection. And then the next prong of the layer of protection is testing, and we have used testing for the most part with surveillance testing to see if we have unknown incidents of COVID in our community. but also when we have exposures, whether on campus or off campus, we've been able to do that. And that's a key layer of protection in our safety plan. We learned yesterday that the local, that the Albany College of Pharmacy site has staffing issues, and this is happening all over the place. People are quarantined or sick, and that's why you can't get appointments. I know some of you who are on the call have emailed me saying, I can't get an appointment at pharmacy. That's exactly the problem. And without that available, it became really clear to us that we need to go remote for a week. And we've been told that that site should be up and running on the 24th. So that's our plan, and that we go remote for a week now. And we also are going to use that time to ask all of you to get tested. It's an additional layer of protection. And I know it's a little, it's one more thing, and we've been asking a lot of things of everybody, but it's a point in time measure. We may screen some cases that just gives us a bit more confidence when we come back together that we are as safe as we can be. So the testing requirement is something new. You get a little bit of time to do it. I want to encourage everyone to try to register for a test as soon as possible. If you are local, the state-run site at SUNY and the site at Crossgates Mall are taking appointments for next week, so that you can get your appointment on the books now, and then you can upload your test immediately. We are the Crossgates site is doing rapid tests, and we've been advised that the rapid tests that are at-home tests are just as reliable. We're gonna ask you are free to use an at-home test and upload your results to Share My Health. Now I will share that I got a kind of a troubling email from a student who said people are going to lie, and they're going to cheat, and they're going to put fake pictures. And I'm going to let you know right now that as a professional school, submitting false records is a really big problem. And I expect better of this community than that. I really do. I think that we can trust one another to do the right thing and to live up to our ethical obligations and to take care of one another. This is not a joke. This is a real requirement. And I will say that it's a fireable offense. It's an expellable offense if you submit false records. So don't do it. Please don't do it. We're better than that. And I don't want to, I mention that because I think that we have to be able to trust one another, and we have to be able to do the right thing. And we have to also, encourage everyone to take care of one another. I'll remind you that we have elderly members of the community who are here every day. We have people who have had transplants. We have people who are in cancer treatment or have recovered or who have immunocompromising conditions. We all have to do the right thing for one another. So I know we're asking a lot, and we're disrupting our lives, and we are going to have remote teaching, and that's really, I suspect, a lot of what the questions will be about. But I'll stop talking now and take your questions. Ben?
Yeah, we have over a dozen already. So if there are others, happy to pass them along here. I'm trying to consolidate some that are about the same things, because I know people can't see the same questions. Brandon, I see your hand is up, but the one that I've gotten a lot here before we get to Brandon is, can you go over the timeline between today and, let's say, the end of January? What is the timeline? When do people need to do things? When do things need to be submitted?
Okay, let me do my best. And I think we should follow up with a written response to that so everybody has it. Um, your you should submit your booster information as soon as possible. And by the 18th, if you want access to the building, we are going to keep the buildings open. A lot of you will want to either study, take classes, sitting in a, using our Wi-Fi, or sitting in the library, or sitting in a classroom, or in one of the foyers. If you want access to the building, get your booster information in by the 18th. If you are eligible. Now, some of you are not eligible yet for your booster. We know that because we have your vaccine information. So it's complicated. We're looking at this, but it's, if you're eligible, meaning you're, I think it's 6 months out from some and 2 months out from others. If you're eligible, get your booster and upload it. You can get a test, then in terms of getting a negative test, we're giving you a fairly broad window because we know that the tests are a little bit hard to come by now. Get your test next week and upload that information. We need to have that information. What's the date? I don't have the memo right in front of me. We asked for the testing information to be uploaded
We wanted to test next week and then everything submitted before the 24th.
before the 24th. And then it's our intention to be back, assuming that the test site is open and we don't have a change in circumstances, is our intention to be back in person on the 24th. And anyone who doesn't have their documentation submitted, your card won't work, and we will ask you to leave the building. If anyone needs to have an accommodation, if anyone is concerned, I know, so like I said, I've gotten communications from all kinds of different groups with different feelings. If anyone feels like they need extra time for some reason, ask for an accommodation. If you're a student, send your accommodation request to Katie Palmieri. If you're an employee, send it to HR. Brandon, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. I have 3 questions. I was wondering, if we had to stay online, how's that going to affect us when we look for jobs? My other question was, if we just don't feel comfortable coming into the school, could we just go online and not be penalized for it? And then also for the weeks that we do go online, could we get some sort of like discount on tuition?
Okay, so right now we're only planning the 1 week, and I fully believe we'll be back in person. So we're not going to be discounting for that, and it costs us just as much to run the law school for that time. If because of some COVID related reason, including right now with the surge, if you need to ask for an accommodation, submit that, and that's you want to be accommodated by attending remotely. Submit your request to Katie Palmieri and explain what your reasons are. Now, we've been safe at school. Our plan is to continue to be safe at school and to allow you to be safe at school. But we understand that right now we're dealing with a surge, and that we may need to be a little bit, we need to be compassionate as as things play out. But it's our expectation, and we there was a student who said, I want to make sure that it's still working given what's going on with Omicron and some anxiety issues, and that request was granted. So if you have a request, make the request. It will likely be temporary because having people online attending classes is disruptive. It's really, really hard to teach that way. It's hard for students to learn that way, but for some people it's the best the best that we're able to do. And so that accommodation can be granted. In some cases, it may be recordings that you get. In other cases, the professor may be willing to have you in your class. But if, if you really don't feel safe, or you want to make sure that what we've been doing and we've been doing effectively continues to be effective, ask for that time. I hope that answers your question, Brandon.
Okay, and I did have one more question. So like in the event that things go online, how's that going to affect future job prospects?
Oh, sorry about that. That was your first question.
Yeah.
I think employers understand exactly what's going on. And I do see Joanne Casey is here from the Career Center, but our experience when we did have to do it, and again, I really don't think that's where we're going this semester. We're a vaccinated population, we can do this. But should we have to do it, employers, I don't think, are looking at graduates who have had to be online, whether through an accommodation or because their school went online. I haven't seen any difference. Joanne, have you seen any difference in how employers are responding?
Not one bit, not one bit. We are fully functional online, and employers are actually embracing it, and a lot of them would like to stay with the virtual interviews, and we're doing a virtual interview program. Our programming is online too, so we're moving forward.
Thanks, Joanne. Dina.
Thanks.
Just backtracking for a second to confirm the timeline. So assuming students have their necessary vaccines, boosters, exemptions, and just looking at testing, students don't need a negative test result to enter the building next week. They just need it to enter beginning the 24th. So we can go into school and get our test sometime next week in preparation for the 24th. Is that correct?
Yeah. And part of the thinking with that is that it's far fewer people. You'll be spread out. You won't be sitting in a classroom for hours on end.
Okay, perfect. I just want to confirm. Thank you.
Sure.
Still on testing here. We've got
Okay.
a lot of different questions about home testing. What's the protocol for home testing? Do I just take my test, take a picture of it and upload it? Is that good enough? Does that work? Or do I need to go to one of those sites?
Yeah, no, if you have home tests, that's exactly right. Take a picture, upload it to Share My Health. We are treating it as an affirmation that this is your test and that it's recent and that, but I would suggest if you're going to use a home test, wait until maybe Friday or Saturday to take it, because there's no reason not to make it as close to, unless you're going to be in school earlier, then that's fine, do it earlier. That you, the home tests are fairly accurate for diagnosing if you're contagious. So we're accepting them and we've been advised that they're good. So hope that answers the question. Claire?
Claire Stratton, yep.
Hey, okay, so I just had a question about the timeline, kind of. I know that some people can't get boosted yet because they got vaccinated less than 6 months ago. So if they want to enter the school before the test is due, they would just send in their negative test early, right? Like if they wanted to come in the 18th and they don't have their booster, they would just send in their negative COVID test.
Yeah, we're gonna really look at the negative tests the next weekend. It's a lot of administrative stuff. So if you are not eligible yet for your booster, we know that. You feel free, if just to be sure that you can go ahead and send an email to Katie to let her know. But because we have your records and Share My Health, and it's a fair number of you. A lot of you got your second booster in August, and you're not eligible yet. But we will be chasing you down later on in the semester to get that booster. But yeah, so if you want to come to school next week, if you're able to get that test early in the week, that's great. If it's later in the week, that's also okay, and you can still come into school next week without the test. But if you have symptoms, listen, if anyone has even a tickle or a sneeze, please don't come to school. Please get tested. And this is where we did really well last semester. But there were a couple of times where someone tested positive who then said, I actually had a sore throat. I kind of ignored it. Don't do that. We all want to be together. We want to make this work. And these next couple of weeks are going to be really critical.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Mask question here has been asked a couple of different ways. Is the school getting the N95s? They can be expensive. They can be hard to find. Or will that be on individuals? Can we just talk about masks and who's
Sure,
who's
yeah,
getting them?
so we are ordering what we can get. We're not gonna have enough to get everybody one, so for every day, but if you need them, we'll let you know how to have those distributed. I don't know if Chuck is on the line. Let's see. Yeah, Chuck, you're here. If people need an N95, do you have a plan for distributing them, or maybe we'll just wait and see if you want to unmute yourself?
I think that's something we'll have to wait and see how many we have.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
And see what the order is.
Okay, so we'll see what we get and we'll let you know how to get them, but we are definitely trying to get some extras so that people can have access to them.
Okay, moving down the list here. Extra mask, okay. For students who tested positive over break, do we need to be tested again or produce within 90 days if we've already had the quarantine period? So if you tested positive over break, do we need to be tested again?
So I'm gonna defer. I'm gonna wait on answering that one because I want to check with a medical person. I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, and I believe that the answer is going to be that you don't have to test, but I want to get that confirmed by medical guidance rather than by what I understand from reading the internet. So we will get a communication out, and I'll make a note, and if others can make a note, that we need to let you know whether you need to test again if you had a confirmed case. We haven't been requiring that. I just want to make sure that continues to be the guidance before I fully answer that question. If you did test positive, it's helpful for us to know. So again, rather than wait until the day before we're all coming back to campus, if you can let HR know that you tested positive, that way we at least have that information and are able to then work with you.
And apologies to everybody in the chat who is asking them. I'm getting all the questions. It's just there's a lot of questions, so please have a little bit of patience. We're trying to get to everybody here. Quarantine period is the next one. There's the 5 day, there's a 10-day. What is the school following for quarantine periods?
So this is one area where we're being more strict than some of the guidance requires. We are concerned about having people who have had close contacts, and we're concerned about people who are testing positive. So we are continuing to use, for people who tested positive, a 10-day isolation period. We're not allowing you on campus for 10 days if you test positive. And that 10 days runs from either your first symptom or your positive test, whichever is sooner. And that's different from what you'll hear from some other places, but we just feel more confident with that. And of course, if you are a student and you test positive, you let academic affairs know, and you'll be given access to the classes so that you don't have to get behind. If you're really sick and you can't get access to the classes, let us know that too, and we'll try to help take care of you and make sure that you're able to catch up when you feel better. If you are a known close contact, meaning that you have been exposed to COVID, so a COVID positive person for more than 15 minutes, then we will ask you to not come to campus for 5 days and get a test before you come back. And again, it's a strict requirement, but we think that it does help in terms of our layered protection system.
Okay, transparency question here, which I think is fair. The law school just announced what it's going to be due. Some other schools like UAlbany, I think Union, RPI announced a little while ago what they're going to do. What was the protocol? How did this all come to be? How did we come to these decisions is the basic question. Got it a couple different times.
So, I mean, this is, there's a lot of work and conversation behind the scene, consulting with other schools. Some of the schools right in our local area, Sage and Maria, are planning to open next week. We were planning to open next week, knowing that we had to watch and wait, knowing that what our success has been thus far in keeping the campus safe. And as soon as we made we got the news about the testing center and made the decision as quickly as we can, and we've tried to do that. It's tough because these are hard decisions, and so there's a lot of conversation that goes on. Bigger schools, the New York City schools, I meet with the New York City law deans every week. They have universities, they have people that are coming in on trains every day. It's a very different situation. Some of the schools, RPI and Union, they're residential schools. They've got dorms. Again, very different situation from our campus, where most people are really just here for work and for classes. So we believed we were going to be able to open on the 18th. We're now going to be remote for a week, and then we'll be open. And if that changes, I will promise I will continue. Once a decision is made, we let you know as soon as possible. Making the decision does sometimes take a little bit of time.
I hope this is a straightforward one here. A couple questions on if you're not eligible for a booster, you filled out the form, can you still come to campus?
Yes, if you're not eligible, then the requirement doesn't kick in. No one is required, no one who's not eligible is required to get it, so you can come to campus.
As long as you have your testing.
As long as you get the test. You will be hearing from us though when you become eligible, so you should plan on getting that booster when you become eligible.
A couple questions on the add drop deadline. Is any of that affected by a week of remote?
Dean Mayer, are you with us?
I am. No, we haven't made any adjustments to drop add because students will still be attending their classes in the same way. But we would consider that if there's enough interest from the students, we could absolutely push it a week. I don't think that would make a difference. So if the students would be more comfortable with that, that's certainly something we can do.
Yeah, I did get some email about that, particularly with skills classes, Dean Mayer. The feeling was that students wanted to kind of try them out in person, so that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. I hadn't actually thought about that, but I'll talk. I think Dean Fitzsimmons is on this call too, but we can make an adjustment for add drops. I don't think that will be a problem.
Thank you, Jenna.
Hi, yeah. Just to turn for a second to the question regarding kind of the decision making relating to testing and whatnot. I guess I kind of just wonder, we received January 3rd an email from the school telling us we were recommended to get a test. And I guess I just kind of wonder why at that point we didn't make the decision to require testing, which would have allowed students then to have this time that we're now having with this week of remote to go to all these places and get tests. I know that institutions like UAlbany sent out emails weeks ago requesting testing before return. So I just wondered why there was this shift as of late, besides obviously the staffing issues at the testing center at ACPHS, why we now shifted to this remote week to accommodate testing.
Yeah, it's a fair question, and it's on my shoulders in some ways. We talked about requiring tests earlier. The thing that changed was a conversation with an epidemiologist who said to me that if there is adequate supply of testing in the region, this was very recent, you should do it. So that was decided at 4 o'clock yesterday. And I apologize for not making that decision sooner. I do, we're 2 weeks away from the beginning, so you still do have time. The other thing that did change was the opening of the mass testing sites, which on January 3rd, we didn't have, there were no tests. So, and we knew our partners at pharmacy have made themselves available to do the surveillance testing, the testing of people who have exemptions, and the testing when we have exposures or symptoms. They've never been available to do the mass testing for pre-start, and so we had to do it this way in the past. And I'm sorry for not getting you that decision sooner. We didn't make it, and that's what happened there.
One here that it's been expressed a couple different ways, but there's a concern by some that some other people, no names, of course, they're not scared of COVID. They're acting in a way that can put me at risk for my law school experience. When discussing that with campus in general, what should we do? I think this is kind of a classic societal issue, but of course we're part of society.
Yeah, it's hard, right? If you're being super careful, it is really hard when we see people who are acting in different ways. I think a couple of things. One is it's a community effort. We all have a stake in being open and being together. So we can all sort of put some peer pressure and call people out. We also are doing what we can to enforce. It's tough. You can't be eyes everywhere. I wander the building, tell people put their masks on. We all have to help one another do it. I don't know, anyone else who has ideas. I'd love to hear other ideas about how do we help communicate how important it is, because even if you don't care about COVID for yourself, we have to keep a safe community, and we need to take it seriously here. Dean Queen and I, do you have thoughts on this question?
I mean, I agree. I think, it's important from a broader community perspective, and it helps if everyone can encourage their colleagues to do what is necessary to keep us all safe. I mean, I think we're all mindful of that and think about that and equally frustrated by it. But in order to do all the things we want to go back to doing, I think it's really necessary.
Okay, another question about testing here is, do we envision testing going beyond the first week? How, looking forward beyond the first remote week? I know a lot of things change, but what do we think for the rest of the semester? Is there going to be testing all semester long?
Yes, so I expect that we'll do what we did last semester with random surveillance testing and testing of anyone who's symptomatic or who has been exposed. If we need to do something different, we'll do something different, but that has been working so far, and that's our plan going forward. It's part of why we need to get the pharmacy site back up and fully staffed so that we're able to come back.
Let's see. I think we have people that are coming in and out here, so we're getting some redundant questions, but I think it's okay to have it in here a couple times. I'm just going to put I'm vaccinated and I have my booster. Do I still need a negative test before coming back,
Yes.
even if I don't have symptoms?
Yes, and it's a new requirement as of yesterday.
Do I need, again, for the timeline here. Okay, so today is the 11th. Between the 11th and the 24th, do I need my negative COVID test? And then post 24th, what happens?
Okay, so between the 17th and the 24th, so we're giving you a whole week window, you need a negative COVID test. After the 24th, if you are symptomatic, if you have been exposed, or if you're selected for random surveillance testing, you'll need to get the test and you'll need to follow the directions there. That's what we've been doing, and then we plan to continue with that.
Does the kind of test matter? Can it be a PCR? Can it be rapid? Can it be a home test?
All of the above.
If somebody has symptoms and they have to stay home, they're asking about being penalized in regards to attendance for classes.
Yeah, no penalty. Just submit to the Academic Affairs Office, Katie Palmieri or Dean Mayer. Just let us know that you have a COVID-related reason for being home, including sniffles. We don't want you to come to class if you have any symptoms at all in person. We want you to get better, get tested, and then come back. So we're probably, because of how widespread COVID is right now, we're probably going to have more of that, and for the faculty on the call, we're going to have to be a little patient and with each other, but yeah, no penalty for staying home. You're doing the right thing by doing that. I do see, Ben, I see Alex Marie's got a question. I can.
Yeah, sure.
I hate asking this, but I'm going to ask it. In the event that things are not looking any better next week and we're not going to be able to come back on the 24th, when can we anticipate hearing an update on the status of whether coming back in person will be possible or not?
So again, I think we're going to be able to come back in person. We were planning to come back in person until yesterday. If there's going to be an update, it will be as soon as there's a decision made. I can even, on Friday, I'll send a where we are message. I think that's probably fair, so that are we expecting Monday to be here, or is it going to be another day or two? Where are we with the testing center and our ability to come back?
Thank you, Alicia.
We also, just so everybody knows, and we found this last semester, there is a COVID page for the law school. If you go to the homepage, it's right on the top of the page. It says COVID-19, and anytime an email or a message goes out in regards to COVID, we put it on that page. So if you've missed something, you can't find it, you want to review old material or previous material, it's all there for everybody who needs it. And then we put it on social media as well. So that'll help you keep up to date as best as possible. Going down through the list here, even if I had booster, question about home tests. Unfortunately, sometimes they're unreliable. Would you prefer us using the mass testing site, or just can we address home testing and the reliability thereof?
So I've been informed that the home tests are as reliable as the ones that you're getting at Crossgates. Those are also the rapid antigen tests. And so they're not perfect. None of this is perfect. And again, I'll speak from my experience. The person who was positive in my household over the holidays had symptoms, tested negative 5 days in a row, finally had a positive test. So it happens. It also happens with the PCRs are more reliable if it gives you more confidence that U Albany site is doing PCR tests, and there are appointments available there. So the upside of the rapid test is they're quick, and they tell you if you're contagious at that moment. That's what we're being told. The PCRs give a little bit more information, but we will take either one. I had a private question from a faculty member who wants me to remind everyone that we're an in-person school. While we are making accommodations if you have a COVID-related issue, that will allow you to attend classes remotely or review. For some faculty, you can't attend remotely, you're just going to get recordings. But you can get the accommodation, but it's for COVID-related reasons. If someone is sick in your household, if you have symptoms, if you've been exposed. So job interviews, you don't get access to Zoom. We don't do that. We need you here. It's hard and it's disruptive. So the reasons that we'll grant that accommodation are really about being sick. And if you're sick with something other than COVID, we're also going to grant that accommodation. But it's about health that we're allowing folks to attend remotely.
Just looking at the clock here, there are some questions that we just won't get to. I'm collecting them, and we'll probably have to. We'll probably have to address them individually. We do have a lot of different audiences here. Of course, we have the students and the faculty, but there's also the staff. Could you go over how staffing is going to work starting, I guess, from now through the semester as we know it standing at this point?
So what we know at this point is that the staff have been since the beginning of January. Folks may not know this. Our staff is so great. Everybody works so hard. But with the surge in the community, we decided to give each department the option of letting folks work remotely if it works for the department. Some departments, I mean, if you are in the building, there are some of us who are here. There's some people who have been here every day because their job requires it. There are some people who have been here part-time. The goal is to get back to in-person. We're hoping that most departments will start being back in person next week, but talk to your supervisor. Each department will have individual plans for next week, but we anticipate that when we're back full swing, that everybody will be back in person unless you have an accommodation that allows you to work remotely.
We had a couple of questions here about again, going back to what we talked about, enforcement, the COVID committee that I believe is made up of some people here. I think there's some student representation on that committee. Could you just go over that committee, how it works, protocol for it?
So yeah, Dean Queenan, do you want to talk about that committee?
Sure. I don't know if Andrea Irizarry is on, but she's been coordinating the efforts of that committee, and there are students on the committee, faculty and staff. And there is a process where if you have a concern, it's shared with the committee and the committee discusses it, and we try to take whatever steps are necessary to address whatever the concern is. So that will continue. We can send out some information just to remind everyone about that if that would be helpful. We can send that out by email. So that has always been helpful because it often results in some conversations about, depending on what the concern is and how we can best address it.
Yeah, and it's a way to deal with some of what the question about, what happens if we see something that we're uncomfortable with. There is a tool through the committee so that an individual may have some consequences.
Actually, then I hate to keep going down negative avenue here, but there's lots of questions on this. The library, a lot of people concerned. They're seeing people without masks in the library. Could we just go over how the library is going to work?
So the library, our plan is for the library to work like it did last semester. that with potentially a little bit more enforcement. So individual workstations, we have allowed people to sit and work in a carrel. You're supposed to wear a mask at all other times in the library. If we have a problem in the library, we'll make a change, and that we're watching it closely. And I know I did hear that during exams there was some laxity. That's not going to be okay. We're coming back during a surge, and so we need people to be careful to wear their masks. If you're not at a carrel, wear your mask, and be very careful. We did have some students who asked if there could be another place to study if they don't feel comfortable being in the library given the rules, and we are going to make some space available. There's some good space over in a whole suite of offices over in the 2000 building. So that will be available for people to study, where it will be mask required at all times, no exceptions. So we'll get you that information when you come back. We'll try to get that out for folks that want that kind of a space.
A couple of iterations of work study. What do work study students do? Who do they speak with if they have questions? What is the protocol for them starting up the semester and moving forward?
Andrea Wedler, I see you're on the call. Can I pitch this one to you?
Sure. For the first week, next week, I would say work with your supervisor. I think if you're able to work and come in and you're comfortable, that's okay. If not, then I would say if you're able to work remotely, you can. So, you do have to work your hours to get paid. If you're not able to do that, I think it's going to kind of be up to the department and their needs and what work they have and where it can be done.
Sorry, there's just a lot of questions here, folks. So I'm just getting through all of them, trying to consolidate as best we can. Beyond, I know, again, this is going to be a redundant one, but beyond week 1, do we anticipate staying remote, or do we anticipate coming back live? I mean, we know we've answered that 3 or 4 times.
I mean, I'll say this again and again. I think we're planning to be in person. We're planning to be here and have as robust an experience as we can.
Physical space. Are we going to be changing how we're doing that in, like, say, the DAMC or the lecture halls, or is everybody going to be seated as they were last semester?
So that's something that we talked about, particularly like in the wings. I think we learned a little bit from last year with the seating charts, putting everyone up front. We're going to ask faculty, and I haven't talked to the faculty about this yet, so surprise. We're going to ask the faculty to let students spread out, and then we'll figure out how to make a seating chart from there. We'll probably just do it the old-fashioned way by sending something around that people can write their names are, and we'll ask the legal assistants or somebody to turn it into a seating chart so that you can spread out some more in the rooms.
If we do get back live, what could trigger going back remote?
An outbreak on campus could trigger going back remote. Shutting down of the testing center, which is out of our control, could trigger a period of remote. Remote doesn't necessarily mean the whole campus. It could be that we have a section, and you may have instances where there are faculty members who are put in isolation or quarantine or who become ill, and they may have to put the class remote. So we are going to ask for patience and flexibility. And I know it's hard. I know I started out by talking about how much loss and frustration and anger there is around this, and I'm asking for even more from everyone. We are really committed to trying to have as little disruption as possible, and this delayed start is going to be a piece of that. And the new testing requirement will be a piece of that. It will give us a little bit more peace of mind that we can start and continue like we did last semester, where we didn't actually have to shut down. So, you know, we'll see.
Couple of questions about grades. I'm not sure if they directly come from this particular meeting, but there are a bunch of them. Should grades be in despite COVID now? I guess there's, according to the questions, there's been some delay.
Oh, Joanne?
I'm missing several rosters. I had just got one during this meeting that I'll post, so I have one grade roster left, and the professor has told me today. So I can't do anything without the grades. So I've been trying to tell all the students that I'm sorry. I know the deadline was last Thursday. I can't do anything if I don't have them. So.
All right, if you are the faculty member who has not turned in your grades, turn in your grades now, please. Students are waiting.
Could we, some of the 1Ls who are starting this semester have never gone through a remote class. What can they expect?
So it'll be a lot like this. Lots of people on the screen. Professors, some professors do a lot of calling on students. Some professors do lecture. Some professors do breakout rooms. If you've never been in a Zoom breakout room, you'll get talked through how that works, but it's basically puts you into small groups and you work like that. So I think there are some people who love the remote format. I think most of the professors will encourage you, if not really ask you, to keep your cameras on if you can. Now, not everyone is in a situation where you can keep your camera on, but it makes for a much better class if we can see reactions and make it as close to sort of the in-person experience as possible. We've got some students. I see Dina had her hand up. Do you want to describe what it's like to be in an in-person or a Zoom class, maybe from your perspective, and then ask your question? I'm calling on Dina.
Sure. Yeah, I think as you described it, I think it differs depending on the professor. I think that from my experience, most professors more actively engage students, that it wasn't a straight lecture with no one speaking. And most of my professors encourage people to have their cameras on, so that way you didn't feel like you were talking to a blank screen. But I think it does differ depending just on the professor and the class period and what they decide to do. I mean, I found it to be rather, I mean, I was fine with it. Like, I didn't think it was too problematic. I don't think I missed something, except for in the case that there was like an internet issue or something of the like, which occurred once in a while, but I don't think it was anything terrible. I think it was okay for the situation. But my question was with regard to study spaces. And I remember last academic year, there used to be like pages, like a sheet of paper posted, I think, on the doors saying whether there was a class in that classroom and what time it was. That way students could use the classrooms when they were not being used for a class. I don't think that had happened last semester, but I was just wondering if it would be possible in order to create additional study spaces to list what classes are taking place in what classrooms. That way students know whether they can use that classroom when it's available.
Sure, yeah, that's a great idea to do that again. So let's put that on our to-do list as well. And I'll just say a word about classrooms. We do require masks in classrooms, and the reason that we require the masks in the classroom is because people are forced to be in them. We allow people to eat. People have to eat somewhere, so we're allowing them to eat in the cafeteria. But if you're uncomfortable with that, you can avoid the cafeteria. But the classrooms, people, including our faculty, have to be in. So we do ask that you wear masks in classrooms, even when you're studying. But yes, we can do those signups so that you're able to grab those spaces. And I know walking across in the winter feels like a lot, but the space in the 2000 building is actually very nice too. So that will be a nice option.
Could you go over masking one more time? What is the expectation for what masks should they have? What masks are they required to have, et cetera?
Okay, so we are encouraging everyone to use the medical grade N95s, KN95s, or there's a 94 that is on the list as well. The requirement is that you wear a mask. You have to mask up, wear a mask. And protect yourself by wearing something that's more effective with this particular variant. Encourage each other to do so. So that's where we are with that.
I think Lori Law had a question.
Oh, Lori, hi.
Hi. In response to the signs outside the rooms, we did that back the year before because the rooms weren't being utilized at all. They were kind of closed except for the classroom, the class is scheduled. So that's why we're able to do that. But administrative services actually keeps track of the room schedules. So while we could list the classes outside the doors, it is a big project. So, maybe with the extra time of being remote, we could get that together. But the problem with that is it's not the only times the classrooms are being used. They're being reserved all the time through administrative services. So really the protocol is to check with administrative services to see if a classroom is free. Just because it's empty doesn't mean, or there's no classroom listed, no class listed doesn't mean that it's actually available.
Yeah, so we'll figure out a way for students to use them when they're open. It may not be exactly what it was. That's a good point, Lori, that when we had the just free sign up, that we weren't having club meetings and whatnot in the classrooms too. So, right. But I think it's a good idea. We want to provide as much space as we can, and so that may need to run through administrative services. We'll revisit that.
We are at the 1 o'clock hour. Dean Willett, it's up to you. The dealer's choice if you want to keep going. We have plenty more questions.
Well, I'm happy to stand for another 10 minutes or so. Are there, if anyone has a question that's especially pressing, I'm going to suggest you raise your hand, but Ben, you can go through the list.
Dean Mayer, I get to pick the teacher this time, so I'm going to cold call Dean Mayer.
All right, great. Well, I have my hand up because I actually have a meeting with a student at 1 o'clock, so I need to go, but I just wanted to ask if anybody had any questions that would be specific for me about anything that might be happening with the classes. Or one of the things that I will follow up on after this meeting is I will send out instructions to the 1L class about how to, get on Zoom through Canvas and what the protocols are, and remind also students, we're sticking with the same rules we had last semester about COVID related reasons and the process that we're going to use to make sure that you don't receive an absence if you have joined either via Zoom or if you watch a class recording due to COVID related reasons. So I'll send out an email about that to everybody just to remind you of what those protocols are.
Seasonal allergies. I know I have them in the spring. They're coming up. What do we do? You're sneezing. Your nose is running. What happens with those?
Yeah, me too. So this is again where there's a little bit of judgment. I think the first time you're sneezing and your nose is running, get a test, stay home, get a test. If it's negative, then you can say it's allergies. If anything is a little bit different, then get a test. There is a little bit of judgment that goes on there. I know I am a frequent tester because I frequently wake up with a sore throat and keeps not being COVID, but yeah.
Events, stuff like moot court, club meetings, etc. There's a big in-person part of that. what can we expect for some of those big spring events?
So we're really hoping that we'll be able to have them. Right now, we're in the middle of a search. So, you know, the next couple of weeks, I think that events should be limited. We haven't, our rules are out. We're allowing outside guests who are invited to come still. We haven't changed that rule. But I know we're looking forward to like a Kate Stoneman Day, which I urge everyone to go to. It may be that it's limited to our community, but once we're back in person, we'll have that. So the protocols are the same as they were in the fall right now. Go to Andrea Irizarry if you have an event that you would like to plan. If it falls outside sort of the, I think it's a 10-person thing, then it will go to the safety committee and you'll get a response, and there may be some conditions, but we're hopeful. I mean, there is reason for hope that we are going to be a fully vaccinated community that takes care of one another, right? So we should be able to gather at least with each other for things. And the pattern of this Omicron variant in other countries has been a real steep climb and then a pretty dramatically steep fall off. And we don't know that it will follow that pattern, but we're hopeful. And so this is a hard period. It's hitting right at the wrong moment. This is the peak right now, according to the people that study these things. So hopefully it's going to fall off and we'll be in much better shape. So I'm looking forward to in-person events. We're planning in-person events. And if we can't do it, then that will be another one of those losses. But you know, if we can do it safely, we will do it.
Most of everything else we've either answered in some way, shape, or form. My dog will tell you that we've done that. So we'll have the recording available for anybody afterward. But and there's also some in here that I think are just going to have to be individual emails, individual speaking points with everybody else. So Dean Willett, I don't know if you had anything else you want to add here at the end of the meeting.
I'll just say, you know, I know that this is hard, and I appreciate everybody, every student, every faculty member, every staff member. We are in this together, and I hope you can feel and understand that we care about you, and we want to give you the very best educational and work and life experience that we can, given hard circumstances that nobody wants to be in. But you're all amazing, and you know, when we are back together, and that will be soon, I think, you know, we can take some joy in being together, and it will be great to hear laughter in the halls again, and to see you doing whatever it is that you do here at the law school. And so with that, I guess we'll close out. Thank you all for being here. We will continue to have conversations. Feel free to send questions to Ben or to Tom Torello over in communications. We will be as communicative as we can. If we need to do another town hall, we'll do another town hall. We'll read your email, read the Albany Law School email. It looks like a form, but it's got important messages in it. So I guess that's how we'll close. So farewell for now, and thank you all.